very warm welcome to the first in what will become a regular monthly series of virtual industry insight events broadcast across our social platforms. My name is Chris Quye. I'm the Director of Learning Solutions at Biz Group, and during this series we'll be talking to a number of industry leaders and influential figures from across the L&D landscape. Now, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our first guest to start the series, Andrew Stotter-Brooks, Vice President of Learning and Development at Etihad Airways. Andrew, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Delighted to be here. Thank you for the opportunity, Chris.
Delighted to have you. Now, our topic this week is opportunities through adversity, a subject that I know is very close, Andrew, to your heart. So as 2020 starts to come to a close, thankfully, and we reflect back on what's been a very tough year for the majority of companies and industries worldwide, none arguably has been hit quite so hard as the aviation and travel industry. Now, I wanted to start simply by asking you, Andrew, how are you feeling and how are you coping with all the challenges from 2020?
We're just doing brilliantly. It's been great. It's been a real year of reflection, I suppose. We've really never wasted a good crisis, and we've really taken a great opportunity to really develop our fleet, to really tidy up our operation, to spend a lot of time when our teams were down, not flying. We've done incredible amounts of development. We were very, very, very fast off the mark, I suppose. So we're feeling really good, actually. We're feeling very, very strong as we come out of 2020. Really looking forward to going into 2021. I think we're in a really fantastic opportunity. We're always going through a kind of a bit of a restructure, a bit of a rebirth, kind of discovering who we were. And I think, we've definitely, of course, none of us would have wished that we had COVID, but we always had, our strategy was always very much set long before we moved into that horrible situation. And so probably not completely uniquely, but definitely we're in the probably top 1% who knew precisely where we were going. And actually the crisis sort of massively played to our strength, really, and really made a lot of the stuff we've had done in 2020 very, very successful.
It's great to hear. Now, I know from first-hand experience of having worked with you guys just how agile you can be and how innovative you've been in the past with some of your L&D initiatives and some of the things that you've done and undertaken. So I think what really impressed us is that even though you've had this huge amount of adversity, you still found ways to innovate. Is it possible just to explain a little bit more about some of those things that you did?
Well, we're recording this on a Wednesday, and we've just completed our 33rd iteration of what we call our World Class Wednesday webinar series, and it was actually more than 33, but that was the kind of the branded title that we settled on. So I suppose, like most leaders, as kind of COVID swept across us, I have a very, very great mentor, a lady called Julia Cook, who I've known for probably about 10 years now. Brilliant woman who runs a company called the Change Management Group. And for a while, I was kind of head of change for our Shire group. And I suppose, and that's where I first had the relationship with Julia. And she was the first person I kind of picked up the phone to and went, Julia, what am I going to do? It was like, and she looked at me and she said, well, first of all, Stotts, you're a phenomenal communicator anyway, and you just need to kind of crank it up a couple of gears. And so I'm perhaps sometimes overly confident. I like to be quite challenging. I'm quite a cheeky chappy. Actually, I was being referenced on a call a few minutes ago with our CEO, so he was taking the mick out of me being a bit of a cheeky chappy. But I basically, I thought, crikey, well, what can we really do? I know we've got some great technology in the organization. Let's kind of really harness that technology. I pushed out an advert, really. It's just a very simple advert saying, come and do some learning with us. I didn't really know where I was going to get speakers, but I thought, well, I could probably do a couple to get us started. And maybe because probably no one would want to listen anyway. And that was my first thought. And I'm very authentic, quite genuine. And we were overwhelmed with how many people turned up for the session. So we were regularly getting 2,000 plus people dialing in, listening to our events. That probably went on for about 4 or 5 weeks where we were running events. I invited sort of like senior leaders to be interviewed in the not dissimilar to this. We tackled some sort of big topics. And then we basically we kind of started thinking this is probably a bit more successful than we had originally anticipated. And we then started to reach out to some of our friends, really, in the wider sort of like learning and development network, not just L&D, but business professionals who we felt would have a really strong message for our teams. And we've kind of gone from there. And along that journey, of course, Julia Cook, the aforementioned, the beautiful Julia Cook, spoke with us, which was amazing. But we've also had NASA. So there's a lady called Carrie Foster who she was talking around creative thinking and asking questions and innovative questions. So she spoke on a brilliant woman. She spoke on a World Class Wednesday. And as we were kind of wrapping up the session, she's, we'd kind of gone off air, and she said, you should talk to my friend at NASA. And I was like, you can imagine what I'm like a rabbit down a hole. So I said, well, can you connect me? And she goes, I'd be delighted. And I phone, about 48 hours later, I was on a phone call with Houston, Texas.
This is what I find most exciting about all this. At the start of the year, we were quite formulaic in our approach across all platforms in terms of what we did. And yet, by default of what happened, we were forced to adopt these new things and new ways of working, which have very quickly become the norm. And everyone is sick to death of hearing the phrase, the new normal. But what's impressed me so much is how quickly people can adapt, and the energy and enthusiasm that people take for these new ideas and new ways of working. I mean, if we'd had this conversation a year ago and we were talking about getting hundreds of people engaged in one subject at one time, that would never have happened in traditional L&D landscape. So for me, I think the key thing from talking to people like yourself, other people within the industry, is just how positive an experience actually, in hindsight, some of this has been, and it's accelerated the growth and the development of some of the programs that perhaps we might have had to fight harder to get in the past. So I think it's pretty fair to say, I'm sure you'll agree, that if we hadn't been faced with this adversity, do you think we'd have created those same opportunities for individual development?
Not at all. Never wasted. I mean, I suppose I've coined that phrase, never waste a good crisis. I think it just rapidly moved it forward. I mean, what we know now from our learners is that we have kind of like a hierarchy of learning about the way that we prefer to learn. So, and actually, it's probably not a surprise to you or me, Chris, but we've kind of discovered that they really like being coached. They like it when people ask them questions. When their boss asks them some questions and they start thinking for themselves. They love the idea of being mentored, which is really, really useful. They've really enjoyed. We've got a great. Obviously, you go in a biz group, and you guys are fantastic partners for us. We also have a brilliant partner, Abu Dhabi School of Government, who have been just incredibly generous and supportive in the program. So, I mean, I'm just sort of running some numbers from my boss, but we've got, and because I'm going to go and do that with him in a few minutes, but we're literally. We had 16,000 people went and started doing learning with the world's top universities online, just overnight. That's resulted in, I think it's 5,328 qualifications that have been taken in the last 4 or 5 months. And these guys have now got, I'm not talking about the Andrew Stotter School of Management. I'm talking about, Harvard University and Berkeley and Oxford and MIT. So in Massachusetts University, I mean, these are big learning institutions. So it's quite remarkable, and that kind of move over. And the other thing we've really discovered, it was always part of our agenda, our strategy. And it's taken me into the House of Lords recently. It's taken me into, House of Lords, it's the senior sort of legislative body in the UK government. For those listening don't know who the House of Lords is, and obviously the House of Commons as well. So that topic has kind of focused us on that as well. It's been quite fascinating. So we've actually had that's the piece around micro learning. So I got asked by the Minister of Education to go and do a talk at an event with the British government Conservatives in the UK. And we were talking around the concept of micro learning and how that works. And we were talking about, next generation learners and how they're kind of progressing. And that has been fascinating. And I had a load of MPs who were asking me questions around micro learning. It was all virtual because I haven't left Abu Dhabi. I mean, why would you want to leave Abu Dhabi? I'm a very lucky man to live in such an amazing place with such beautiful people, and very, very genuinely, it's an amazing place to live. And I I got invited in, and they were asking me the question around micro learning. And I said, well, you know, you keep saying micro learning stops. You know, what does that mean? And I was like, well, give you an idea of kind of micro learning. And I said, well, when we started this kind of journey, we wanted to try to get, because we know, you know, 3-4 minutes probably is a good attention span for people to learn information. We know that repetition of learning is important. There's some really good stuff going on there. Just some really good sort of solid learning theory, really. And then there was this kind of almost audible gasp on the, you know, and they were like, how could you possibly learn anything in 4 minutes? Or how could you possibly learn anything in 3 minutes? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I've misled you. I said, we don't do 4-minute learning. We do like 60-second learning. They were like, what? I was like, no, seriously. I said, because if you think about a good TV commercial, you know, most of our content now we talk about 1 minute, 2-minute learning, because that's how people like to consume their knowledge. They like to have a good bit of information. They like to watch it lots of times. It amazes me. I have, you know, it's another number that I find staggering, really, Chris, is that we've really used. There's obviously the WhatsApp. Everyone is familiar with WhatsApp. I can't believe this myself. I mean, I have well over 8,000 employees, not just employees. There are some other people, but the vast majority is Etihad employees who get a daily learning message from me via WhatsApp groups. Yeah. And I know they listen, because if I don't send the message out, I get thousands of text messages. WhatsApp saying, are you dead? What happened? What happened? So it's just amazing, really. So just using technology that exists and is very robust in slightly different ways, being very innovative. Yeah, so I'm quite proud of the team, really. They've done some great work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's quite interesting. You think next year is going to be the year of innovation, and building on from this year, so many things that have already started to happen, as you say, and conversations that you've started. It's only going to build on that. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum recently announced that the UAE plans to be the fastest recovering economy in the world post-COVID. Do you feel optimistic about 21? What does success look like?
I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball like anyone else, but I feel that actually I think 2021 could be an amazing year. We talk about the Roaring *20s. I think we would, you know, I'm obviously even I'm not old enough to remember the Roaring *20s. But you know, but realistically, yeah, I think I actually think there's going to be a massive bounce back. I genuinely do. I just think about you know, when I look at things, I tend to look at things from multiple perspectives. And if I look at it from I haven't seen my parents. You know, I'm British. You probably have gathered that by now. And I haven't seen my parents for more than a year. You know, I haven't seen my brothers for more than a year. I mean, I see them on virtual sessions. It's not quite the same. I mean, I'd like to better, you know, sort of touch them and hug them and stuff like that. I can't do that. So there's that kind of, I think, you know, that's just me. There's you know, 9.3 million people living in the UAE. There's 9.3 million people who probably want to go and give their dad a hug, or give their mum a hug, or give their grandmum a hug, or give their brother a hug. So I suspect that as soon as we are allowed to go and do those hugs safely, we're going to be very, very busy chappies. And the good news is, from our point of view, is that we are ready to go. You know, so we've got our fleet's been completely refurbished. Our team have been completely retrained and developed to sort of meet that demand, and we're really focusing on that wellness piece and that support piece to help our passengers feel safe when they're flying with us, and our teams feel safe when they're working and serving the guests. It's so important to us. And so yeah, so I said, I'm not gypsy. I've got a mystic Meg ball, but I do believe that we are we're going to see a very, very, very good 2021. I hope we deserve it, Chris, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And having visited your training centres many times and witnessed firsthand the trainers and the crew and the general upbeat, optimistic atmosphere that always seems to pervade Etihad headquarters, it would be fantastic to see that back again. And I'm looking forward to 2021. Now, final questions. I know you have to go. So just if you will allow me, what do you think your 3 biggest takeaways are this year that you'd be happy to share with your peers and colleagues across our social platforms?
I think the first thing is never underestimate the value of past or future learning opportunities. I think that's really, really, really important. I think never underestimate that. People, try and use new opportunities, and sometimes there's a platform that we have, in this case, for me, WhatsApp, which basically, you can reconfigure it almost. Is there a different way of using it to kind of get your message across to people? There's this piece really, I suppose, around, don't underestimate the power of, just engaging and building relationships with people constantly, and I think that's really, really useful. And finally, just don't waste a good crisis. That was 4, Chris. I apologize. You gave me 3.
It's okay. You can have
I've stolen an extra bit of advice.
You can have the 4th one. Listen, Andrew, some fascinating insights and advice there. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time this afternoon as well. And please give our best wishes to your colleagues at Etihad and also at the House of Lords. Who knows?
I will definitely be passing on your best wishes to the House of Lords when I talk with Lord Price later. Yeah, next time you speak to me, you won't be able to call me Andrew. You have to call me Lord Stotts of Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Andrew, listen, thank you very much, and we will look forward to speaking to you, Lord Stotts, in the future.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. Really appreciate it, and everyone at Biz Group. Thanks. Stay safe out there, guys.
Thank you.